everybody. This is going to be kind of a rare office discussion, but I have my chalkboard up here to kind of reference some notes, so I'm pretty sure you guys would be able to see that if you have like a full screen on or whatever. But anyways, I'm going to guide you through the notes here. I've recently switched to the meat target, but I wanted to discuss why, based on my distrust of clear ballistics and FBI testing. So hopefully people will learn from this and not just be deniers because they don't do their own research. They just like taking manufacturer or other ignorant people's word for it. Same people that'll think that a 45 is going to pick you up and throw you back or whatever, and that any bullet's really going to throw you back or have stopping power. They use that word, stopping power or whatever. So anyways, those people are the ones that you don't want to listen to and ones that are never going to be convinced. So with all that said, let's go ahead and talk about the more common thing today, and that's clear ballistics gel testing. Number one, let's realize that it is synthetic in nature, and that if you've ever watched actual FBI and clear ballistics comparisons, you'll notice that it gives more penetration than you'll actually see in something that's more representative of muscle tissue. So sometimes it'll actually cause rounds to not even expand, and the reason for that is that synthetic material gives a lot more. It's kind of a double-edged sword here because on one hand it shows that the temporary cavity is not going to be as extreme as the FBI gel shows, but at the same time it's not really a water-based thing. It does compress. We're mostly made up of water, so water is a non-compressing substance. So bullets are based on that, and the lead actually gives to non-compressing substances. It can be crushed and, well, not crushed, but it can be basically bent and, deformed, and it's malleable to certain types of pressures, which going at a big velocity and throwing it at something like water will cause it to deform. So with that said, the synthetic gel does not really represent an accurate level of penetration. The next thing is that the ballistics gel is an organic membrane or protein-based substance, which is pretty accurate as far as the mixture and water content that our muscles have. The only thing that thing really accurately represents is if a bullet is typically going to expand once it hits muscle. The temporary cavity it gives is something that you need to ignore, because here's the thing: muscles around it that are receiving a shock wave or the hydrostatic shock, it absorbs that, unlike any other animal tissue. Things like hogs or something else, they have a little bit of a different body composition. Their muscle tissue reacts a little bit differently, but the crush cavity, the behavior of the bullet as far as the hull point expansion is very close to humans. However, the surrounding tissue is not going to behave the same. So therefore, it's more of a water-based substance, but it has that protein membrane that kind of shows the delay of that non-compressing characteristic that muscle has with that high tissue, high water content. So anyways, it doesn't represent things like the 4-inch, the skin, the effect skin can have on bullets, because even Dr. Fackler said that skin basically has the same resistance as 4 inches of gel. So that's the third one here. People don't even realize that, and they think that it's going to reach 12 inches in the body or whatever. That's based on ignorance, lack of research, and just parroting BS that they hear. Some manufacturers are even guilty of this. They don't even know what they're talking about. Or they're not keeping up with the times. They're just taking a standard. They don't want to do more research and statistic based. So they claim they go with what works, but I think most of what they're saying works is based off of exsanguination from basically being hit in areas that were already shallow for the vital organs, not taking straight on shots as they were supposed to be preparing for. Also, rounds that failed to expand, you want to go off of things that actually do expand and basing off of that, in my opinion. And then beyond that, I think that people are failing to see that body composition has changed from the FBI. The FBI protocol was based on 12 to 18 inches. That 12 to 18 inches for gel is based off of people's typical body composition, which is how big they are, how much muscle they have, things like that. What the gel is not accounting for is fat and bone and even skin. It's not showing that. It's just showing a consistent medium, which is muscle is the most consistent, which shows that in real life it's not going to actually perform the way that you think it is. And then it not representing bone is a big problem, because here's the thing: bone can drain momentum of a round extremely. It can cause a lot of problems with rounds. Pardon me. Didn't sleep much last night, but I didn't have enough coffee either. But basically, bone can absorb a lot of the momentum in rounds, and it can also cause a deviation off the intended trajectory, basically causing it to go off course. And if you're aiming for the heart and the thing just goes off course and when it reaches the depth of the CNS or the heart or the lungs or whatever, and it's off course, then there was no point to begin with. That's a missed round. You might have hit an arm or a leg, or just hit this area to begin with. So for the most part, bone can have a big effect, and that's why I transitioned over to the meat target. It's basically a pass or fail, and it shows a more accurate representation of what bone and muscle tissue can actually do. Because some of the stuff that you get at the store that I use, pork chops, pork ribs, they have a good amount of water that's even extra, that's kind of more accurate to what the muscle tissue is going to do. And again, pork can show what the round is going to do when it actually impacts the stuff, but the surrounding tissue is going to give more of that, and it's going to show a lot more surrounding damage and stuff like that. But the bone, very similar to ours, maybe not as dense. So basically, whatever the results are, you probably want to, add a little bit of what it can do. And what I've seen is deviation off the intended trajectory for lighter bullets, 9mm in particular. So things like HSTs, when I would test the HSTs, they would shed petals. They would penetrate really shallow. So people that are that ignorant to talk about things just because, they work. Well, how do you know they work? How are they working? Is it a psychological stop, or is it actually penetrating from hitting the sternum and still going? Usually if it's actually doing that, it's going through some other barrier, it's failing to expand. So I don't really buy it. So my own testing on that in clear ballistics and stuff like that, getting only 14 inches or whatever, and it's very consistent, who cares? Typically the 14 to 16 inches is equivalent to a 12-inch minimum. So it's still minimalist, if not a little bit below. Even the FBI testing showed that it's actually a minimum in penetration, and for today that 12 inches is not representative of what you need. It's actually 14, probably 16 inches is what some departments are going for, because they realize that people have gotten fatter and stuff. So that's not a good performer, and just because police departments are using it doesn't mean it's good. So anyways, that's the reason why I switched to the meat target. The problems with ballistics gel testing and stuff like that, people don't really understand how it is. So like Lucky Gunner, who's using that and still saying the 12 to 18 inch minimum is, or 12 to 18 inches is good, kind of ignorant. More like 16 to 24 inches would be a good idea to measure off of. It's not a bad thing that he's doing that testing, but I think that it's a lack of understanding of the characteristics of clear ballistics versus regular ballistics gel, plus the coupling with the where those numbers came from. So with all that said, that's really my analysis and my understanding of these two gels, the clear ballistics and the FBI gelatin, and why I don't use it anymore. I more would go with the pass or fail with the meat target test, which I have other videos on, and I would use, if I were you, it's very inexpensive to do it on your own. So with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Go ahead and comment below, and you guys have a good one.